Welcome to the Stop Doing Stupid Stuff podcast, where we cut through the hype and talk about what actually matters in tech, leadership, and risk. Today's episode: AI, security, and third parties. We're diving into a blunt, urgent warning from Patrick Opet, Chief Information Security Officer at JPMorgan Chase. In his open letter, he makes it clear: SaaS is now a massive security risk. Third-party vendors are becoming single points of failure, and AI is only making it worse fast. So if your org is rushing to deploy AI without a solid governance framework, you're not just innovating, you might be inviting a breach. We'll break down what this means for real teams, real data, and real dollars. And we'll talk about what smart leaders should be doing right now to secure their AI stack. Today's episode is brought to you by PCS-San Francisco, protecting organizations with managed cybersecurity and AI solutions that actually make sense. Let's get into it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Stop Doing Stupid Stuff podcast. Want to get into a pretty, I think, topical subject to a lot of organizations all over the world here. And I'm going to ask Tim to give us a little bit more details on that. But real quick, before we get into it, out of sheer coincidence, our sponsor for today is PCS SF out of San Francisco, does managed services for cybersecurity and AI implementations to make sure that you're safe and protected. So, Tim, not that I kind of alluded to anything on our topic there. What's our topic for today, bud?
Well, it's hard not to give some of this stuff away, but I agree with you. I think it is serendipitous that we have PCS as a sponsor today, given the topic today is really something different. Instead of an article, this is an open letter from Patrick Opet, who's a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer at JPMorgan Chase. And this came out, in the last couple of weeks. I don't have the exact date on it, but what's really fascinating about it, and it's worth looking, very easy to find, is that their concern with the evolution of software as a service and platform as a service providers to JP Morgan Chase, they're very worried about security. They see companies speeding to implement, but are they taking the time to make sure that the data that they're accessing and leveraging is protected? Because the concern is with everything in the cloud that some of the inherent security that came with everything being siloed within an organization was that you could get something, but you couldn't get everything. Well, now we're on the other side of the coin, right? If they can get in, it's very likely that they can get to everything or a lot of the data. And this is where I think organizations are starting to wake up and going, wow, who's using AI? Do I know about it? Who in my vendor cloud is using AI? How are they using it? And what are they doing to protect my data as part of that use? So, I mean, I know that was a big introduction, but I couldn't help myself. This is like a really important one.
Well, I don't know. I don't really see the importance in this. Everybody knows AI is super safe. JP Morgan Chase, who I don't know, what they have like trillions in assets that they manage for their clients. Why would they be worried about this? AI is cool. You can, write funny emails and it can do emails for you. It's totally safe, right? I don't see the concern. I think it's unnecessary market panic for Chase.
Yeah, yeah. And this one, I'm going to disagree.
Well,
But
what's funny? Obviously, I'm being a big jerk when I make that comment, but like, I don't think anyone seriously thinks it in those literal terms. But there are people out there who would have this misconception that, oh, they associate AI with just being super smart and super safe, and they don't really understand or comprehend how AI actually works.
well,
Like, and they define it differently. They can ask anybody what AI is, but I think they need to be brought down and kind of reintroduced to the topic of AI and how the basic information flows through and the exposure levels and the frameworks needed to manage and govern it.
sure.
And
Well, I mean, we don't hear a lot, at least I'm not seeing it a lot when AI companies are advertising about things like security or data protection. They talk about, LLMs, or they talk about, speed the process or accuracy of response, which are all good and important, but it's kind of like the two elements that don't seem to ever come up, or rarely, or how much it costs and how secure is it. I mean,
yeah,
just think about the perfect example. I mean, I used to run a consulting practice, and I could imagine a business analyst going, "Oh, look at all this transcribed customer communication for the last 3 years. Let me dump that into a generative AI tool to do a full end-to-end analysis, looking for trends, regression, key factors, influencers. Very important, just what I want to do. Okay, well, let me just ask the question, sir. So what AI tool did you use? Well, I got 4 or 5 of them. I go, okay. And was that data, redacted for PII, or did you just have the raw files? What have you done to make sure that even under NDA, you're protecting your client's information that you just now put in a third-party tool? I can't think of a more awkward conversation to have right now, but I'll guarantee it's happening every day, every single day.
I think that's where people like let's put a what I think is probably a frequent use case out here. You have folks who subscribe to Microsoft 365. I think that's what it's called now. I'm still old school and say Office. So you have Microsoft 365. Well, it's being bundled now with Copilot, right? Which is built on top of ChatGPT's models. So you're like, all right, well, I work for this huge company that probably has tens of thousands of employees. We're using Microsoft Office, this 365, and we're using Copilot to write emails and do the analysis that you just talked about. Oh, and by the way, we're on a VPN. So yeah, we're totally safe. We are good to go. And they don't really understand. Even if you take AI out of that example, by the way, and you're just on an old school email VPN, you're still tons of risk exposures with the other softwares that you're acting with and what's being shared and where it's being, stored or collected. And so I think to your point, just kind of educating people, even if it's a quick reminder. I hate to say email because I think that's such an antiquated way of communication, a lazy way of communication in the modern day. But even if you email something now, it's better than what's going on right now. Everybody's just assuming it's safe, and your infosec teams are like stressed out of their freaking minds. They can see all of the different exchanges and where the data is going in and out, and not necessarily seeing where it's going out, where it's being warehoused to on the outside of it, and it's driving them freaking insane. That's why you have, you know, someone from Chase who's writing this open letter in information security saying, "Hey, quit trying to deploy AI so you can do a press release claiming, oh yeah, we have AI deployed. And we're super, super modern, efficient, and like, okay, well, what is the governance framework to ensure that the AI that it's being drawn from is safe? Like just walking through that scenario itself.
Well, and I don't think, again, and then there are the unknowns, right? Because you don't know what that SaaS provider or platform as a service provider is using in their third party, for server management, patch management, security management. And you get one person gets phished or social engineered or gives up their credentials, and suddenly you're a company looking at a 50 million or $100 million lawsuit from your clients because of lost services. Um,
Exactly.
and I'll call out Dan Hernandez and the PCS team, but Dan, he has just recently had one of his clients get ransomware, and they had to restore several terabytes of data for this firm, and they were able to do it, fortunately. But in different circumstances, that might have been impossible, and this company might have lost everything or been forced to pay the ransom and lost everything as well. So I think these are the types of things that, again, and, not wanting to play fear mongering, like don't do AI, but I think just like with any technology, the rush to implement sometimes is gets in front of it's just because we can has to be answered with the should. Like, are we ready? And I think, as you and I have talked about several times, when as you get away from, or you look at very specific use cases for Gen AI, like, for example, we talk about customer service a lot. You can't just be leveraging, these LLMs where the risk of hallucination or, unforeseen answers is got to be addressed. So how do you go back to the small language models where you are set the guardrails, you know exactly what's in the data set. And if the data is not there, don't allow for hallucinations. The alert should be, I can't answer the question because I don't have the data to support it. I mean, that at a minimum And I think that that's the risk, is that people aren't looking at it like that. They still like the LLMs. They like this idea that I have this incredible capability to search quickly, rapidly, do analytics, get a formatted response. Hey, I do it. And I think it's a wonderful tool. I mean, it's a really great tool when I'm trying to get thinking outside the box or whatever, and and allows me to move faster with things. However, I'm trying to be very conscious of what I put in. And even then, am I giving up IP, my own organizational IP, by the way I ask the questions? Like, I'm sure if somebody pulled my questions down over the last 90 days, they'd probably get a pretty good sense of our strategy thinking, as we get to halfway through 2025 and start thinking about 26 and beyond. So, at that point, am I creating a risk for my company just by that? Like, I don't know who has access to that information.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of goes back to establishing a framework, and it doesn't need to be a overly complicated framework. Like if you go back and look at NIST, AI risk management framework that just came out, I want to say they established it maybe 2 years ago. Just go look at that framework. It's just a governance framework that outlines reviews and things that need to take place, just like any other new AI tool that would come out, or not AI tool, but software tool that would come out that has connection to the internet.
Yep.
Like, what kind of governance is around it to ensure that you're safe? And you're right. Like, we want people to adopt AI. AI is, I would say, people can debate this. Overall, it's a good thing. Now, how it's used, that's a different, podcast for another day. But AI inherently, I think, is a good step in the right direction. But it's just like anything else. It's if I forget the analogy you came up with about the, I'm gonna butcher it, so I'm not even gonna repeat it. But having the knife and being a chef in the kitchen and what you do with it, right? In the right hands, it can create a masterpiece. And I just think it's more education that people need, but then setting up the governance framework to enable all of the checks and balances that need to incur to ensure you're not introducing risk that's not currently present
Right.
today, or asking why. Why are you doing this? What is the benefit going to be? And how can you maybe introduce a little bit of risk that has governance wrapped around it, so your CISOs aren't, pulling their hair out at night, and then figuring out, well, what is the outcome? Like, why? Why are we doing this? Because we want to make a marketing claim that we're an AI company, or that we actually really want to help our employees, so that way they stay longer, they're more productive, and our end users get the benefit of that. And how we do that in a safe environment. We're not building rockets here. It's pretty straightforward. It's exciting. We want people to be excited about AI. Just do it in a very responsible, secure, governed way. That's all.
I think you that was an actual perfect closer for what we're talking about today, which is that AI is here, good, bad, or indifferent. How you use it is important. What are the outcomes that you want from it? And regardless, just like with everything else in your organization, when it comes to security, whether it's physical security, data security, whatever, you should have policies, practices, audits, and training to continually refresh with your employees how important this is. Because the biggest risk in security, unfortunately, as much as we want to point at technology, is the people around the technology. So, with that, and the final call out to our sponsor today, thank you very much for sponsoring today's podcast with PCS San Francisco and their amazing CEO, Dan Hernandez. So, with that, Mr. Andreas, sir, what are you off to for the? Let's just say goodbye to everybody and head on into the into the darkness.
No, good convo, important convo. I appreciate it. And the listeners have any questions, feel free to reach out and let us know. And maybe we can sync you up with Dan the man himself at PCS.
Sounds great. All right, thanks, Andreas.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Take care, everybody.